Welcome to our next topic, green living. In this topic, we shall be studying about sustainable diet, transport, and consumption patterns. In our previous topic, in a quick recap, we studied about action. We studied about how everyday choices matter. We studied about what is climate action. We studied about how our current behavior patterns need to be swapped with more sustainable and environmentally friendly actions. I gave you a list of things, and I told you that list is almost as lengthy as it can go to incorporate the little changes in our everyday behavior. And I also gave you a reflection to go back and think and pen down about what you do towards saving the environment, about your personal lifestyle domains where you think you are greenly living. In our today's topic, we shall be dealing with those few things in a little more detail. We shall be dealing with sustainable diets, we shall be dealing with more sustainable transport, we shall be dealing with about consumption patterns. This topic personally is very important again. It is linked with circular economy. It is linked with consumer patterns. It is linked with your carbon footprints. So let's begin. Sustainable diet. Like in our previous topic, we studied in climate action about diets, the five things that were there. The first was food. So sustainable diet, eating green, living clean. Sustainable eating is not a new concept. Our forefathers, and even let's go beyond that, when we were only forest dwellers, when it was only the caveman, the jungle man, all they did was sustainable eating. So sustainable eating is not a new Gen Z concept. It dates back to ancient agricultural practices. It dates back to earlier civilizations like the Egyptians and Mesopotamians who practiced crop rotation and mixed farming to maintain soil fertility and reduce the risk of crop failure. Now, while if you remember, which you should, when we were studying about the topic of soil pollution, we studied about how we are using chemicals to grow crops which are even not seasonal. Growing non-seasonal crops by using chemicals, which in return, of course, decreases the fertility of the soil, which of course decreases the quality of food, which of course then becomes an infertile soil. This infertile soil, now let's go even back. Nutrient cycles, the biogeochemical cycles that we studied. This soil was being replenished when the nutrients were naturally in their own flow going back to the soil, to the plants, to the trees, to the animals, the decomposition, the decomposers, and back to the soil. All those natural cycles that are now being disrupted by human intervention are causes of soil infertility. So back in the day, when there were no pesticides, there were no chemicals, there were no insecticides, there was nothing of the sorts. They used their own techniques, their organic techniques. They used to see, okay, this thing is having this sort of effect. If we do this, and then, oh, now if this crop has used, let's say, X, Y, Z nutrients from the soil, and what remains is ABC. Now let's plant a crop that grows on ABC. So when that crop is grown using ABC, the XYZ recover meanwhile. And then you plant the first crop again, which will use XYZ nutrients again. So that is crop rotation. Instead of growing one crop throughout the year using unnecessarily outsourced chemicals, you leave it on nature on its own. You leave it on the nature to replenish its own self. You do crop rotation, you do mixed farming, which then maintains soil fertility and reduces the risk of crop failure. These days, the biggest plight of farmers is crop failure, and it has to be. The chemicals at one point will not help the crop, but will only come to a tipping point where it's going to result into crop failure. So the concept is not new. It's as old as this. The environmental impact of our food choices is profound. Like we studied in action, the 5 domains in our lifestyle that were covered. The first was food. So of course, food choices, हम क्या खाते हैं? Eating green, living clean. So what you eat is going to have an impact on the environment. Industrial agriculture is one of the leading contributors of climate change, responsible for about 25% of global greenhouse gas emissions. This is due to deforestation of the farmland. So the forests which were naturally growing are being cut to create farmlands for industrial agriculture. Methane emissions are happening from livestock, and the heavy use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. We studied this in our topic of soil pollution. For instance, this example is very important. Producing 1 kilogram of beef emits 27 kilograms of carbon dioxide. Per 1 kg of beef production, we are emitting 27 kilograms of CO2, which is equivalent to driving a car for 63 miles. Now, if you drive a car for 63 miles, the amount of pollution that it's going to generate is what is being generated when just 1 kg of beef is being produced industrially. Imagine the impact that 1 kg consumption is going to have on the environment. For a sustainable diet, there are several key factors that we need to consider. Now, if you tell me that you're not going to eat beef, you're not going to eat meat of any sorts, you're not going to involve in the non-vegetarian diet basically, how will you have your protein intake? There are various plant-based foods. In fact, today in the market we have a lot of plant-based protein as well. It's not only not red, the sign of red that is used for something that's non-vegetarian, and the sign of green that is being used for when something does not have anything non-vegetarian in it. So plant-based protein is not just this, it is completely vegan, it's completely eco-friendly, and it is proven to show a lot of actual muscle gain. It's not just something I'm talking about of pure air and pure out of nowhere. We do have plant-based proteins, which is vegan, which is eco-friendly, and which does help you in your protein intake. Fruits, vegetables, legumes, and grains generally have a lower environmental impact than animal products, and they're also a rich source of protein. Legumes and grains are such a good source of protein. Reducing meat and dairy consumption can significantly decrease your carbon footprint, of course. I mean, we saw this example of how producing 1 kilogram of beef is creating so much carbon dioxide in the environment. So, if we decrease the consumption, the word consumption is going to have a lot of impact, and it's going to be a lot of importance, because what we are today, we are probably, you and I cannot really do something as big as what the governments can do, what the international forums can do. You and I cannot possibly develop sustainable development goals agenda that all the countries of the world have to sign, but you and I personally are consumers. You and I personally can do our best to decrease the consumption of certain things. You and I can do something so that the manufacturing goes down. You and I can do something so that the biodiversity is maintained. You and I can do something about the environmental stress reduction. And all of that is based on our consumption behaviors. Next, choose organic and locally sourced foods whenever possible. Now, local mandis do provide locally sourced food. Now, rather than a few food chains in India are said to be importing their frozen food from other countries, like imagine the amount of preservatives that are being used in that food would be so much, because not every place has endemically a variety of soil that it can grow all sorts of things over there. Sometimes we do now there's a trend of eating a lot of avocado. Now certain terrains in North India do not allow the growth of avocado. We do outsource it. It's a healthy choice indeed, it's very nutritious. But again, if we can find a locally sourced alternative, nothing like it. And even better, we can in a small backyard create an organic platform where we can ourselves grow certain things. So choosing organic and locally sourced foods whenever possible is next thing that we can do towards sustainable diet. Organic farming practices avoid synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, promote healthier soil and ecosystems. Local food reduce the carbon emissions associated with transportation and often support small scale farmers in your community. So, using this will help not only in covering reducing the transportation and CO2 emission, this reducing this, but will also help in supporting the farmers of your community, which means economic, this was ecological, and then comes ethical. So all your actions have to be again mindful of the 3 E's. We all know about the 3 R's: reduce, recycle, reuse. But in this course, we learned about the 3 E's, about environment, that is ecology, economy, and ethics. Coming next, what we can do towards sustainable diet is minimizing food waste. When we started climate action, if you remember the palm that I showed you, it said in food that you need to minimize food waste. I mean, you need to totally cut food waste, but minimizing would also be a crucial thing that we can do. Plan your meals, store food properly, and use leftovers creatively to reduce the amount. Don't just, okay, if there is some leftover, I agree that sometimes something is not palatable and you don't want to have it. Don't throw it amid the other garbage of your home. Go back to waste management, go back to segregation, go back to different bins for different type of garbage. So composting the food scraps can also help return valuable nutrients to the soil. You can use it in your uh, khad that we have. Composting. Look for certificates such as Fair Trade, Rainforest. Now when we buy something, let's say we buy a packet of pulses, we turn it around. What we see, okay, MRP rupees this much. Zyada se zyada what we see that it's Food Security Authority of India has approved this. Let's go beyond. That's the purpose of this course, to let's go beyond what we also know but don't incorporate it, but also let's go beyond what we don't know. So we need to look for certificates like Fair Trade, Rainforest Alliance and Soil Association and organic. So when something is fair trade, means no animals were harmed, it's pure dietary, it's plant-based, no malpractices, unfair trade practices are involved. Rainforest Alliance, this farming was not done after cutting a lot of forest area to be prepared for farming. No. Soil Association, nothing was harmed in the soil, no pesticide drift was done towards it. This is organic, it was organically grown. So these certificates are also very important. Once you look for these, you have more demand for these, the response will automatically be nice. The concept of circular economy again, which indicates that the products are produced sustainably and ethically. These labels ensure that the workers are treated fairly. Fair trade and no unfair trade practice will also involve that the labor was treated fairly. Environmental standards are met and biodiversity is protected. Be mindful of packaging. Plastic packaging needs to be avoided. Choose products with minimal or recyclable packaging to reduce waste. Cardboard or paper packaging. Bringing your own bags, containers and produce bags. If you're not buying a pulse which comes packeted, or आप खुली दाल ले रहे हो, so you need to take your own containers already so that they don't pack it in a plastic bag for you. But all these things we don't do because there's a lot of gap between again knowledge and action. This gap is being filled by this course. Bringing your own bags, containers and produce bags when shopping can also help cut down the use of single plastics. Okay. So like I said earlier, that sustainable eating is not a new concept. Now, here I have a question that the indigenous people of America cultivated the three sisters, a method that maximized the yield and soil health. These three sisters are which of the following crops? I'll give you the answer at the end of this topic. Till then, think about it. Sustainable transport. After eating good, we come to travel. How you need to travel. We've studied this in a lot of detail when we covered our topic of air pollution, where we studied about carpooling, we studied about how we can use public transport. Here we are going into a little more examples about the same. Electric vehicles, electric vehicle infrastructure. So just making electric cars would not suffice the purpose unless we don't have infrastructure for the same. If the roads don't support it, if there are not enough charging stations for the same. I remember in Delhi, there's a cab that runs on charging stations, but the charging stations are very few. So an infrastructure needs to be developed in synergistic approach with the electric vehicles. Smart mobility solutions for traffic, and we know how much pollution is caused because of traffic. So smart mobility solutions are required. Like not everyone always uses a Google map. जहाँ का रास्ता पता होता है वहाँ तो we don't use Google Map. Google Maps though tells us about okay, here's a road blockage, here's traffic, here's this, that, right? But apart from that, traffic solutions must be done in a better technological way. In Canada, we have very good smart mobility solutions for traffic controlling, urban planning. Again, houses are being built at a very high rate. Concrete buildings are rising till the height of the sky. So, all this urban planning needs to be done, keeping in mind sustainability. You just don't have to raise buildings, you have to also raise your ethical standards with the same. Sustainable fuel for cargo transport. Again, using oil is a lot of fossil fuel consumption in cargo transport. You need to shift to something more sustainable, something solar probably, using biofuels, using public transport, building cycling infrastructure. This is there in the Norwegian countries. The Norwegian countries have a very, very good cycling infrastructure. They have sheds through and throughout the roads. The roads are so seamless that cycling is so fun. They have made highs and lows, they have those sheds running across. It's a very good infrastructure which must be built in all the countries, which must be one of the sustainable development goals agenda in practical application. Consumption patterns again, sustainable consumption production means doing more and better with less. In the 5 things we started in our climate action, about buying less, about consuming in a certain way, about being a certain type of consumer. So, consumption patterns talk about the same thing, that you can do more and better with less. It is about decoupling. In one question, I had asked you, what is decoupling? So, the concept is being applied here. It is about decoupling economic growth from fundamental degradation, increasing the resource efficiency, and promoting sustainable lifestyles. Sustainable consumption and production refers to the use of services and related products which respond to basic needs and bring a better quality of life while minimizing the use of natural resources and toxic materials, as well as emissions of waste and pollutants over the life cycle of the service or product, so as to not jeopardize the needs of the future. Again, it's all about consumers, it's all about their behaviors, and the market is all based on consumer behaviors, really. It's all based on consumer behaviors. This again is some sort of circular economy. We studied about which in our topic of waste management, sustainable resource management, design in a certain way, cleaner production in a certain way. Transport here is an add-on, which is a good thing we can add to. Eco-labeling and certification, like I said, look for certificates. This is source is UNEP. Sustainable procurement, sustainable marketing again, sustainable lifestyles, the 5 main domains. So consumption and production have to be sustainable. Before I end this topic, I hope we now know how we can make differences in our diet, in our transport, in our consumer behaviors, to lesser our carbon footprint. And things as simple, things as using a bicycle, things as simple as shifting to plant-based foods, shifting to better consumer behavior is what we can do towards championing our path towards sustainable living. Thank you.